I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Meeting of the Wahoo City Council, Tuesday, April 11th, 7 o'clock p.m. Announcement of the Open Meetings Act is posted on the wall. Call the meeting to order and roll call.
Stuart Creechy.
Here.
Shane Sweet.
Here.
Ryan Ideas.
Here.
Chris Rappel.
Here.
Patrick Nagel.
Here.
Carl Walker.
Okay, we have two proclamations. First one is National Library Week. It's appropriate this year because it's the 100th anniversary of the library. And the proclamation designates April 23rd through the 29th as the National Library Week, and there is an open house at the library on April 23rd. So if there's no objection, we'll go with that one. Official proclamation, Tree City, USA. Proclamation states Friday, April 28th is Arbor Day, and it will be observed that way in the city of Wahoo. Urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. So those are the two proclamations. If there's no objections, they will go into the record. Okay. Audience, any comments on items that are not posted on the agenda? Seeing none. Department head reports. Chief?
All right. Well, hopefully you guys got that, the report. You'll notice that it's pretty consistent with activity as, you know, the ebb and flow of the stuff goes on. I'll say, I think you might have noticed a little drop in, parking tickets there for a while, as everybody knows. I don't know if you know, when Stacia resigned, it allowed Officer Ryan Christ, who was our #1 parking enforcement guy on night shift. He come days, so there was sort of a drop off. And also one of the things I've been having the guys do, not just go out there and write parking tickets mindlessly, but if somebody's a repeat offender over and over, let's start going up and talking to the people and find out what's going on. Do they know the ordinance? Do they, you know, why are the people parking in front of the house? Maybe we find out more what's going on than simply a parking violation at a house, and just kind of be more aware of what's going on. Some other news that we were notified the other day, Officer Ryan Martin has turned in a letter of resignation. He's gonna take a job with the airport police down in Lincoln. It was good timing though, because we got Wyatt Brozier. He's a part-time officer, has been working for us. He's out of the military. He's still active or duty with the military reserve. But he's a person that I'm pretty excited to get on board with us. He works in Omaha with some friends of mine doing some security work at some of the open door mission in some really tough areas down there. And I know he comes highly recommended by the guys that I know personally that work around him, and they say he's a great individual, very good. He's also certified, so we don't have to send him through the academy. Unfortunately, he is in a serious relationship with a lady that's soon going to be going on a residency for being a doctor. So he may not be here forever. He may be following her wherever she ends up going. But we got him for now, and we're lucky to have him. I put some stuff down here about his military experience. It's pretty extensive, and he comes highly recommended, like I said. One other thing, Deputy Chief O'Sullivan, he's now currently going through management school, taking some police training. It's a required course he's got to pass to continue on in his position. He's been doing a good job for me though, and what I'm asking him to do is maintain the evidence and our records He's been actually a godsend on helping take down some of my workload. Well, I can focus mostly on patrol and investigation side of the house. Al takes care of the supplies and things like that. And he also oversees our records department, which is always a struggle to stay on top of that stuff. He also put in for a couple of grants. One of them was we got the money for the new in-car cameras. We also got he got a grant, or he's got put in for a grant for some preliminary breath tests. Some of our old PBT machines have went down, just probably time and stuff. So he's got a grant in for them. So hopefully we get them replaced pretty soon at no cost to the city. He's also been working with Officer David Page, sort of getting David Page up to speed on some of the reporting and stuff. So if something happens to Al, somebody can step in and hopefully backfill some of Al's responsibilities. As far as like the fleet maintenance, I think I put down where we stand on cruisers, and the mileage and stuff. We're still working with, Sid Dillon to hopefully we get a state bid, vehicle come available soon. Nothing's available just yet. But you can see the mileage. I think we're at 107, 130, 144, and 156,000 miles on our cruisers so far. So they're getting up there. It'd be nice to get a new one. And once again, I'm lucky I got Al, because Al knows vehicles, and he kind of knows how to keep them running and what they need to stay on top of things. And I'm not a vehicle guy, so I drive them, but I don't necessarily work on them. Once again, that's a good job for Al. As far as the police station, I did bring down some mats down into the basement area, so we can do some defensive tactics with the guys down there. Brought down some light workout equipment, Bulgarian bag, a couple of dumbbells and stuff, so we can do some stuff down there. I'd also like to thank Simon Home and Store. They donated us a refrigerator and a stove, so they had a space for that downstairs in the basement area, where they used to have that in there. But over the years, that just kind of went by the wayside, but it's nice for our officers to be able to use if they so choose. Officer Brad Carls is off FTO, so he's out there on the streets at night by himself, and he's out there on full patrol and he's staying busy. So, I think that's about all I have. If anybody's got any other questions for me, feel free to ask. If you guys got anything you would like to see or something, you talk to me personally about the monthly or quarterly report. I know we're kind of doing quarterly reports now versus monthly. I kind of broke it up into 3 months so you could have a consistent numbers from what you guys seen in the past. But if you have any questions, feel free to.
Do you see an increase or decrease in controlled substance in Dewey? I don't see where we really track like gang violence, or do we even have that around there?
We do not have gang violence. I've not seen any gang violence.
Activity.
I should say we have had a few gang members come into town that have caused some problems, but they're not residents of Wahoo.
Okay.
We have had a couple problems. As far as like tracking drug stuff, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, we track the drug stuff.
Is it going up or down? Is it trending in any particular direction?
I don't think it's going up or down. I think it's probably the same. Maybe we're identifying some more stuff with the K-9 unit and things like that. And also, maybe the way I encourage my officers to be proactive on the enforcement side of the house. I mean, to me, narcotics is the number one thing that destroys small towns. Destroys that small town living that people are attracted to living here. If drugs get out of control, then that brings down everything around it. So that's definitely gonna be our primary focus,
Okay.
and I encourage that. And so you might see an increase in the number of people, users that get cited for marijuana or get arrested for meth, but I don't think it's an increase in the actual numbers.
Okay.
Hopefully, as we catch more, it encourages more to move into other communities.
Have we seen an increase in other stuff besides like marijuana, other narcotics that are out there? I mean, I know one of the big you know, things in the news right now, it's the fentanyl and things of that nature. Have we seen an increase in anything like that, or has it been, you know, found in the
We have seen
community?
fentanyl in the community. Unfortunately, it's been in the community in Saunders County. You know, is it a problem? I don't think so. I wouldn't say it's a problem like other communities, but it is something that we're always aware of, you know. It hits everywhere. And like I say, as far as like enforcement, like going out there and arresting them, yeah, we try and do that. But also if we can just put, pressure on that with the K-9 on patrol and officers being proactive on their enforcement, hopefully it just encourages people to move outside of the community. Because let's face it, the way that, the courts are addressing, people with drug problems and stuff, it's to get them help. And I understand that, but from a community standpoint, we'll get them help wherever they go, and hopefully they decide that there's easier places to live than in Wahoo, where we have a great working relationship with the Saunders County Sheriff. We have, sheriffs that live in town, deputies, state troopers that live in town. So there's a really, for Wahoo, it has a pretty good police presence, not only from the Wahoo Police Department, but also our surrounding agencies, and we do have a good working relationship. You know, you got Trooper Landry here in town, and a lot of the young deputies that are also getting out there, and they're getting very busy on the enforcement, of especially narcotics.
Okay.
Good.
Anything else?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Joe.
Chief.
The second Joe in the alphabet, Joe Wynn.
I don't have too much for you guys today. Had on here, we made it to spring, but I think we skipped spring and went straight to summer.
Yeah.
So winter weather review, we had 13 weather-related events this winter. Overall, we had a good winter. Most of our older equipment held up. We didn't have any major breakdowns or accidents. We implemented some change control procedures, mostly in the downtown area. We're trying to get that snow picked up a lot faster than we had before. Basically, my guys will work during the week, we'll work a shift of 7 to 3:30. They're going home, they're getting 5, 6, 7 hours of sleep, and then coming back. We're trying to get that picked up overnight. With that being said, we need help from the business owners doing the same. We don't wanna have to come back in if they clear their sidewalks and push snow into the street. If we can get them to do that, 2, 3 in the morning when we're out there, that would help tremendously. Otherwise, it just kinda creates a little bit of a mess the next day, cause then we have to come back in and work around traffic and cars and deal with that. But other than that, everything went pretty well this winter. We had some ice events that we had to respond to that were kind of split second. It was raining and turned to ice, but I think the guys handled them great, and I think we got out there and knocked it out of the park, so. With that being said, we moved into street sweeping season. Usually we would be street sweeping about this time, but we got a jump start on it. And we had about 2-3 weeks where we were out sweeping from the mild weather, so the whole town has been picked up at least once. We moved on to potholes. It's been a really bad season for potholes with all the melt and refreeze. You guys know the moisture gets underneath the asphalt, freezes, pops the asphalt back up and creates some potholes. So we went into filling the bigger potholes first, and then now we're in sections filling the smaller ones. We've been doing, I think, a pretty good job of keeping up on those, but there are a few out there. We have some spots that are borderline where we could fill them, but we got the new asphalt machine coming, the asphalt roller coming in into May, early June. So I'm trying to stretch those out as long as we can, because that patch material is very expensive, and I would rather fix areas where we can fix them rather than just throw a Band-Aid, a cold patch on those. So public, be patient, and hopefully this summer we can knock quite a bit of those out. Larger street projects completed since the last report. We've been working down on First Street to East C Street by the fairgrounds. We ditched out from the stockyard area to the east, pretty much from the railroad tracks east. There was a lot of silt in that drainage ditch. Our goal is to keep tracking that back to the west behind the county yard and behind the baseball field, trying to get all that cleaned out. So hoping that helps. There was about 5 foot of silt in that ditch line. So if you guys drive by there, you'll see that the guys did a pretty good job of cleaning that up. We did a street repair at 3rd and Sycamore. It was a corner that had damaged asphalt that was pretty tore up. We poured that back, and then the latest one we did was 12th and Pine. That shoulder that was damaged, we tore that out, 43 feet of it, and poured that back. Solid waste dump, I would like to thank the community for their efforts on keeping it clean out there. And our police department, staff spent a lot of time out there keeping that looking really good, and it looks really nice. So appreciate everybody for their efforts, and I know it's springtime, there's gonna be a lot of people out there. Please keep it up because we appreciate it. But other than that, that's about all I have. If anybody's got any questions? Watch out for the street crews, they're gonna be out. We're gonna ramp up doing more concrete repairs, more asphalt repairs. Just being more proactive than reactive is the goal. So if we get a concrete budget, my goal at the end of the year will be to try to be right at that budget. So we can go into areas and replace panels, curb and gutter, fix the streets where needed. And we'll do that kind of on a spot repair basis. So we probably won't go into one neighborhood and just fix everything in that neighborhood. We'll pick and choose the worst areas and repair them that way. So, thank you.
Take a jump.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. There was a street committee meeting tonight, before the council meeting, so there'll be more coming. Melissa?
Just a couple of reminders, maybe a couple things you don't, one thing I know you don't have on your agenda yet, but on Thursday, April 20th, we are going to meet here from 5 to 7 to do a review of facility needs for the city. All the department heads, or the majority of the department heads will be present for that. It's a work session, so it would be, what?
What time is that?
5 to 7, yes. It is open to the public, it'll be a public meeting, but it is not a requirement that public comment be accepted during that. It'll be a work session. That'll be up to you, Mayor.
Okay.
Then on the 23rd, I think Jerry did mention this, the library's having their 100th birthday party at 2 o'clock on Sunday, the 23rd. And then on Thursday, April 27th, from 4 to 6, the Department of Roads is going to be having a public information open house on the roundabout improvements for the intersection of 109, 77, 92 out here. So if you're interested in learning about that, that is the 27th from 4 to 6 here at the library. A couple other things. Wilmer Ridge, if you've driven by up on Chestnut Street, you've probably seen dirt has been moving. We have worked with Olson. We have a kickoff meeting scheduled. And so hopefully that you'll start seeing more work going on there. The Lake Wannahoo Trail repairs, if you've noticed, the big stockpiles are now gone. They're in the ground. The bank stabilization work has been done. I talked with the construction oversight person today, and they're working on getting the final grading for the trail, get trail surfacing, and then the seeding, and they hope to be completely wrapped up and out by the end of the month. We entered into an agreement with 5 rural planning, Bobby Pettit, for an annexation study. She did reach out to Ryan and I, and she has done a lot of data collection. She's worked with McKinsey, our GIS person. She's worked with JYO to get some of the data in for the mapping. So I think the document that we'll end up with will actually be pretty heavy on the map and the visual regarding each section that's going to be reviewed. She just wanted to run through her format and her plan, so I'm hoping in the next 30 to 45 days we'll be seeing a draft of that document from her. We, several years ago, entered into a contract with Saunders County through the assessor's office to have updated aerial imagery taken Was actually supposed to happen last year, but, so 2023 is now the year. The last one was taken in the spring of 2020, and I cannot tell you how valuable this information is when we're talking about projects or, just to help get everyone on the same page. When you can look at a very detailed, it's not grainy, it's a good imagery, and we're getting that by partnering with for about $2,500 every 2 to 3 years. So, I think Joe mentioned a little bit about safety, or maybe he didn't, but it made me think. I just, with Ryan coming on board and with new staff on board, we have really turned a new page, I believe, as far as safety goes with the city. There's definitely a culture and an emphasis of safety. Our safety meetings are held monthly now. They're every Thursday, the first Thursday of every month. And we have committees. We have a job site safety inspection committee. They go out and do random inspections of job sites and also facilities. So they might have a checklist that's been provided through LARM and through some other resources that they go through just to help us all stay in a safe environment. LARM also has provided, every year we have the opportunity to apply for, and we did and receive the Lean on LARM safety grant, which is $500 that can be used for any safety items. This year, the safety committee decided that an update to all of our barricades, the utilities and city partnered together and used this $500 along with some of our own resources to get those marked in better shape than what we had used. And then they also offer an Armor Up grant for the police department. So for their bulletproof vests, they can get $700 for a vest. Other than that, I just, we're gonna be gearing up for a budget season again. So, and I believe that based on some of the information preliminarily that I've received, there will be many conversations to have about budget and decisions maybe that we'll need to make. So that's what I have.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on, the consent agenda, pretty much routine. The number 5, the administrative billing fees for sign permits and stuff is in the packet. Otherwise, the rest of it is, and all this has been discussed before, so any questions on the consent agenda?
So one last question though, on our electrician licenses. We're trying to get everybody all at one time, but this isn't everybody yet.
No.
Okay.
So the final day for them to be considered on time was March 31st.
Okay.
And that's everybody up to this list here that we gave you. There are people who are still trickling in even this week. And then we'll always get new ones throughout the year as well. That could always be a possibility, so.
But the goal would be this time next year, we would have one list to update.
Yep, hopefully.
We'll get there, hopefully.
That's the intent.
All right. Yeah, I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
There a second?
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Tracy,
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
Okay, moving on, there's no public hearing on old business or tabled business, so we'll move to the back page. Action items not requiring a public hearing. Approval of the third reading of ordinance number 2429 regarding ATV, UTVs within the city limits. One of the changes I know that was recommended last time was the effective date of June 1st is in here. Any other?
I think I wasn't at the last meeting, but
So the other changes have come from further staff review. As far as adding those additional streets in there, I had a conversation with Officer O'Sullivan, who expressed wanting to add something that would help kind of keep the flow of general traffic away from the ATVs and the UTVs. I also, in the additional page that I gave you, the green highlight, while I was reviewing it, after I had sent you the original packets, I realized that that mile per hour limit is state statute, but we hadn't had it spelled out in the actual ordinance. So it's a requirement for, ATVs and UTVs not to exceed that speed limit. I just hadn't spelled it out in the actual ordinance that we would be approving.
Yeah, so the highlighted yellow where it eliminates the possibility of operating an ATV, UTV on Chestnut Street, First Street, 15th Street west of Chestnut, and J Road west of Chestnut is the part that was added to address the staff concerns. So that's something that would be an amendment if you so choose. And then having an effective date of June 1 of 2023.
So you're looking for an amendment?
So if you.
It is amended if you approve the third reading.
No, I think if you are acceptable to these, you would introduce an amendment to the ordinance on third reading.
Okay, so to clarify,
Sure.
those streets that are in yellow, we're listing them because their posted
They're-
speed limits are more than 30 already? Or
No.
they're heavy traffic?
They're
Or
heavier
they're
traffic,
heavy traffic,
yes.
okay.
So it's First Street, which is a county road, right, coming in, Chestnut Street, which again is a county road.
Right,
15th Street, J Road.
And the other highlight is allowing you to cross those roads, simply not traverse on them.
Right.
Okay. So, a motion to amend first?
Right, I think you guys need to decide whether or not
Yeah, what
these
you wanna do.
amendments are, that we are proposing as staff are something you wanna move forward with, and we need to amend that into the ordinance before doing a final vote on the
Mhm.
ordinance.
I mean, it makes sense, but I mean, is there
Well, I
feelings
thi-
one way or the other?
I think it, especially with the First Street, of course, and then the Chestnut, it will be prohibiting those coming from Heritage Heights coming into
Yeah,
town.
nobody from Heritage. We're gonna have, they can drive through their neighborhood as much as they want, but they can't, if they wanna come in with their UTV, they pick up something at a store, they can't.
Right.
Because we have no access for them to get into town.
But that means they can't even come the back way on First
Can't
Street.
come because you become down First Street again, so. Like, they can't go down J and then come up and then back in, cause they'd be on First Street, so. I don't know. I mean, I understand the safety. I don't know if you just lower the speed limit a little bit more.
Then I think that's a different conversation too. I think that, I think this limited, access quite a bit.
Everybody that lives south of the creek is
Right.
in no man's land.
True. That's if we are kind of alienating a section of this community.
Well, if we approach this as a working document, you know, that if we get this up and running, and maybe there's a designated time frame to come back and review it again, and say, okay, is this doing what we want it to do? I don't know. I mean, we can always bring it back at any time.
Could we amend or not amend, have the third reading and then hold off on the final reading? Normally it would follow right up, but.
Yeah, I mean,
Third is final.
yeah, so you would, if you wanted to deal with it in the next council meeting, you would make a motion to amend it and you wouldn't do third reading, which would then table
Okay.
it for the next council meeting.
So we
I mean,
wouldn't have the
Let
third
people
reading.
digest it.
At a minimum, the green that's highlighted on this,
Yeah,
Yeah, that needs to be
that
hashed.
And-
There's nothing we can do about that.
and an effective date
Yes.
of June 1, so that it's very clear when it becomes a
I mean,
possibility.
I'm like, if we don't do it, do we put like a timeline to review and see how it's working, and if it's a problem, then we can amend it to eliminate those streets if it really is a big problem.
Or do we start with keeping them off the busy streets and see if they can actually stay off the busy streets? Yeah, you can look at it both ways.
Yeah.
I do think because of this document having that First Street on there, you just really limit coming in even from the east coming into town from Heritage Heights. I think I'd like to see that First Street removed from there.
Or country club diggers and that.
Well, First Street,
Well,
then
you-
you- then you can go
but
around
you
and
can't,
come in on
you
First,
technically
'cause it's
would
not as
be,
busy.
if you went Heritage Heights
county
and
is,
then
so-
east and then the
Yeah,
county
so-
road and the county road in, you're still in violation because there's nothing that allows you to operate an ATV on the county road from my
Yeah, the only
understanding.
exception, I did talk to the
Agricultural.
sheriff's department about that one, the only exception the county currently allows for is for agricultural use.
Yeah,
So you can be on an ATV, UTV on a county road for agricultural use, but not for any other purpose.
Yeah, if you're gonna check irrigation or
Yeah,
stuff like that, then you can.
So they-
See.
You're, by just eliminating First Street,
Yeah,
you're not
there's no-
solving
It'd have to be Chestnut
issue
Street
that you're talking.
it'd have to be Chestnut Street,
and lower the speed limit.
south of Second Street or something
Well, you
like
know,
that.
here's the deal, Chestnut Street, I mean, people that live out that way or drive that way a lot. Especially this
There's a
spring,
lot of
summer,
pedestrians.
and fall, there are a lot of people that are jogging up and down that road. Kids that are bicycling down that road, I mean.
It does have a shoulder, doesn't it?
Yeah. It does have shoulder, but I mean, you know, from a safety perspective, even taking away the ATV and stuff like that, I mean, with lowering the speed limit on that stretch of road to J to 30 miles an hour. I mean,
But
that
there's,
would
but
eliminate.
that's, with the ATVs and UTVs, there is no limit on what the speed limit is on the road. You simply cannot drive a vehicle faster than 30 miles
Yeah,
an
the
hour.
problem is golf carts, right? So
Right.
you'd have to lower the speed limit on Chestnut going out to the country club if you wanted to allow golf
Golf
carts to
carts.
get out to the golf course. Because right now, its posted speed limit is too high
Mhm.
for the statute. So we couldn't even allow it if we wanted to, unless you dropped the speed limit on Chestnut out to
Right,
For
J
golf
Road.
carts.
right.
Yeah,
Well, even if it was just to that first one of Heritage Heights, so the golf carts can go through the neighborhood and then cross over.
yeah.
But the statutes on golf courts limit to say they can't operate on roads with a speed limit over 35.
Right.
So, this is not a public hearing, but, do you have a comment on this amendment? or-
Yeah, I said public comment. When is a good time to make public comments on these items?
Yeah, technically, Jerry has the discretion to allow any public comment as mayor. The way procedurally it works is you have the
First
hearing on the first reading, and then once the hearing's closed, technically the city doesn't have to take public comment on second reading or third reading, but certainly Jerry has the discretion to allow it.
Yeah, I just had a comment just kind of back to safety. I think this is a fun ordinance. I think this will open up a lot of transportation opportunity around Wahoo. You know, I think the bottleneck of going out to the golf course will be something that you guys will work through the process. But I would just like to ask that there is a little bit more restriction on streets that ATVs and UTVs can be used on and or parked on. Mostly just the business district coming downtown. You know, just from a perspective of having UTVs and ATVs parked outside of beauty salons or banks or restaurants downtown, just would like to just make sure that's thought about carefully, and just what that image will show as people come in and out of Wahoo. So that'd be just my comment. So thank you.
Thank you. So what's the council pleasure on action on the amendment, which would be the yellow?
Well, I think they can pick which,
I'm assuming the green everybody's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, right?
Yes.
Yep.
and the effective date.
And the effective
Effective
Yeah, the
date.
effective date.
Which has been discussed, so this, what's in yellow, is, new to the council.
And I'm not hearing anything really on First Street or 15th Street. The question is J Road west of Chestnut and Chestnut.
Well, I
Is
think
that what I'm hearing?
because the main concern is
That's the
we're
question.
alienating a whole division.
Now, are we gonna, I guess 15th, is it, I mean, you're talking Chestnut all the way to the highway, not to Hackberry. That section's out too, right now with this,
Yeah.
from Hackberry to Chestnut. There's not a lot of, I mean, I guess they can, as long as they can get over to Sycamore, they can, you know, the Locust, they can cross over and continue down into town, but
it makes it a little bit more difficult over there, but I mean, the speed limit is reduced, there's no multi-lane painted or anything there. I understand from Hackberry out, not allowing it to get out to Casey's,
Yeah.
but I don't know so much about from
Chestnut
Chestnut to
to
Hackberry.
Hackberry.
It's, I mean, 15th Street East is busy too, and we're allowing it down 15th east of Chestnut on 15th over to Broadway and Linden, and there's quite a few cars that go down that stretch. So I don't know what the big difference between east or west of Chestnut would mean on 15th there.
Well, there definitely is more coming up the hill on west of Chestnut in that area, but I'm kind of with you too, and thinking, is it
Well, since,
bad enough to the point from Chestnut to Hackberry, or could it maybe be from Hackberry on? But I suppose that people are turning to go on to 15th to head out of town off Chestnut.
Well,
And I'm worried, it was staff concern on 15th and on First, the schools. Those are the two
There
turn
wasn't any
points to the
conversation
schools.
about schools, I
Okay.
think the conversation was more about the amount of traffic. Chestnut's particularly is very busy,
No, yeah, I think we all agree Chestnut is not
but
one that you
that
want.
doesn't solve your problem of getting Heritage Heights.
yeah, but that, I mean, that's two different roads we were talking about, but I agree with what
Yeah.
you're saying, I mean. I just think that we gotta come up with a way to be fair to everybody involved in the community.
well, I think there's still maybe some discussion to be had. I think we've got time before we have to move to the final reading with our June 1st deadline. So if I don't hear a motion to amend, we'll put it on the agenda the next meeting.
Or do you wanna amend it to include the green for now and then
Yeah.
And then
And
table
start-
the rest of it?
start
Yeah.
taking
Then
yours
we'll
first.
do some more
Yeah.
discussion. on it.
Okay. The green is on that page, and then the effective date of June
Right.
1st. That's the two items.
Yeah,
I make that motion.
I'll
To
second that.
amend, motion to amend the.
Second.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion on those two items for the amendment? Roll call.
Krejci?
Yes.
Sweet?
Yes.
Ideas?
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Nagel?
Yes,
So does someone wanna make a motion to table then?
Motion to table
second.
with the intent that we would then have further discussion on any other amendments next week and then maybe go to
Next
third
meeting.
reading. Our next meeting,
Pass it.
yeah. Give everybody time to digest it.
Motion and second to table and further discussion at this meeting. Roll call.
Krejci?
Yes.
Nagel?
Yes,
Rappel?
Yes.
Ideas?
Yes.
Sweet?
Yes.
Okay. Number 2, approval of second reading and possible third reading on ordinance 2431 regarding amendment to zoning regulations as recommended by the planning commission to increase required parking stalls for multifamily residences. The projects that are in place now are grandfathered in, I believe is right.
Correct.
And this allows for possibility of 1.5 stalls, depending on the units, certain housing development areas.
I don't remember there being really any meaningful discussion other than maybe you ought to wait instead of waive it.
Allowing time
To allow
for
time for comment.
I guess I'm still kind of in the same opinion. I guess I'd make a motion for a second reading and not wait the third reading this
Okay.
evening.
Yeah.
Let it simmer one more meeting.
So there's a
I only
motion
got, I
to,
only got one phone call from somebody asking what it was about.
or a motion
I'll second Stuart's motion.
for the,
Second reading?
then a motion to approve the second reading. Roll call.
Krejci?
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Nagel?
Yes,
Sweet?
Yes.
Ideas?
I
Yes.
think Mike had a comment.
Oh, Mike, did you have something else, or?
I didn't see it there.
Yeah, I just invite maybe the interest of a parking study or a traffic study, is that something that's in the budget for next year that can help solidify and back the need to push and pull requirements of parking? Is that something that's of interest to the city council?
Well, there is some discussion about downtown development and parking in general, I believe, but that's not,
They need to add more public parking.
yeah. So it's not gonna happen right away, but as we talk about downtown street improvement, downtown parking areas, bump outs, all those things, we discussed it earlier tonight in the committee meeting to look at that and see what's best suited for the entire downtown area.
Okay, and if that study comes about, that will show, you know, the drastic direction of what parking could potentially need, or what is already here that is suffice to, the proper operations of a typical downtown, I guess. So I'm just curious if we can wait till that traffic study comes out, and we can kind of look at the data before we make these kind of larger.
I mean, this isn't just downtown, this is any place that has a fourplex in town.
Sure, yeah.
It's not specific to here. If somebody wants to build a fourplex north, they would have to meet these requirements. I know, like, if me and my wife were to rent a one-bedroom place, well, we have 2 cars, and if you're only counting for 1 car, and if you have 4 units that are 1 bedroom, and the 4 couples get it, that's 8 cars, and you're only giving us 4 stalls. And the old requirement, so it makes sense. Not as many individuals are renting in Wahoo. It's a lot more couples, in my opinion. And talking with a few other real estate people, he's telling me he gets phone calls for 1-bedroom apartments once, maybe twice a year if he's lucky. Most of them are looking for 2 or 3-bedroom places.
I understand, but I think there's a drastic difference between finding a professional that will give you an actual market study, which I can speak to that as well, versus just kind of the feel of how the neighborhoods are kind of growing and using cars. So I would just, kind of invite the ability to look at more information from other markets that could help steer the requirements that are being put in front of developers and existing property managers and owners for their tenants. So I think that will also help with the structure of Wahoo and the growth of Wahoo as well.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have a recommendation from the planning commission to increase required parking stalls for multi-family residences. So they have approved it and asking for us to consider it, so that's why it's here.
Yeah, I would imagine, certainly what you could do is potentially the reverse of what Mike is suggesting, which is adopt it and see if it's creating a strain, particularly on renovation projects. I would imagine that's where, new construction, where you have an empty lot, that's not gonna be, you have more space, presumably you're not gonna have that strain with the space that is required from extra parking. It'd be your renovation projects that are in confined spacing, right? And so the question inherently, if you adopt this, is, well, are we going to continue to monitor? Is it, or is it not creating a complication for those renovation projects, and do we need to tweak it as a result?
I do know that in preparation for this ordinance, Travis and, I believe Sally helped him, or you did, review many communities' guidelines, and this is not out of line with what other communities have. It's just not that we want to be Seward or Beatrice or any place else, but it is in line with what other communities have. But we did find some that were what we had previously as well, so.
Well, and we've made a point to take this meeting by meeting, hoping for comments, and we really haven't had that many comments one way or another, so I guess silence is golden, or people are agreeing. So where are we at? We got a motion on an amendment, or did we do that?
There's
Second
an
reading.
amendment.
Second reading.
Motion and second reading.
We can move on to the third
Mhm.
item on the agenda.
So we're still moving forward with
We
the
passed.
process. This would be-
Yeah, we
It's
already
a
did
second
it.
Amendment,
We passed
okay,
it.
so
Yeah.
now we're waiting for,
We're gonna do the third reading next meeting.
Yep.
so you're looking for a motion?
No,
Motion
you've
is
already, you've already gotten
We've
that,
done
you
that.
voted on it.
So
So now we're good on the next agenda item.
Okay,
Okay.
Liberty House.
Approval on ordinance number, 24-1XX, whatever that other number is, for renewal of Liberty House conditional use permit. I don't think we've had any issues up there from what I'm hearing, from fire.
We did have a discussion about this in the staff meeting, and there's some of the same comments about there could be better communication in terms of, you know, if there's a COVID outbreak, or if there's a bed bug issue, or if those kinds of things, in communicating with our fire and EMS and law enforcement. But the situation hasn't changed over previous years, so. One of the things that we did also discuss is that, from a HHS inspection standpoint, assisted living facilities are supposed to be inspected once every 5 years, but they're well past their 5 years inspection, and I think it's primarily because HHS just doesn't have staffing to do that. It's one of the least regulated types of living arrangements. You know, your nursing homes are much more regulated, so that's where they focus their time. So as far as the staff is concerned, if you extended another year, they did not have any issues with that.
I'm assuming, Melissa, there was no discussion about the city, you know, as an example, adopting a life safety standard or something when the city comes in and itself inspects or does anything.
No. We haven't had any conversation.
What's the council's pleasure on the extension of the permit?
it's nice to hear that it's been relatively quiet up there. So one more year, I guess I would make a motion to approve the ordinance for one more year.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Roll call on the extension of Liberty House permit.
Krejci,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes,
Yeah, this is to waive the 3 readings, or?
I mean, I can
It's an
waive the 3
ordinance.
readings at the same time, if you wanna make that motion to waive the 3
Both
readings.
motions.
Okay,
Okay,
I'll second it.
sorry.
that's fine.
roll call on waiving the 3 readings.
Krejci,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Nagel,
yes,
Ideas,
Yes.
Racker.
Yes.
Now, the
Another reading.
The
ordinance itself.
Krejci,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Racker,
Yes.
Nagel,
yes,
Ideas.
Yes.
Okay, number 4, approval of a waiver of preliminary plating process and authorization to move on to final plating for Destiny Ministries lot combination application as recommended by staff. Thoughts on that, Travis and Melissa?
So this is, there's some criteria in our zoning regulations or our subdivision regulations to say if these conditions are met, the staff can recommend that the preliminary plating process is waived and we move directly to final plating. And it's been Travis's recommendation. Several times you've had this come before you, but this is the step that just says, yes, we as a council agree, we're waiving the preliminary plat and moving to the final plating process. And then it would be up to the applicant to submit the information to present to the council. So this is just approving that waiver.
Only need one bite at the apple as opposed to 2.
Questions?
Is there a time frame then at all? I mean, final plating can happen, or we waive preliminary plating and authorize to move to final plating, but really no time
There is
frame.
no
That's
time.
still up to the landowner to do that.
Yes.
And just so you know, this would be replanting of all of the campus. Right now, there's what, 4 parcels?
Four.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
So we would be making.
Move it into one.
And I know, just so everybody's aware, I think that's generally been the city's preference as well. So I think the city welcomes this replat. I think it makes sense because, an example, you have lots of utility lines running between the various properties. You have parking that presumably would be necessary for multiple buildings. It makes sense, I think, for everybody involved for this to happen. So I think it's a good thing from the city's perspective.
I move to approve. Waiver?
Second.
Okay. Motion, made and second, to waiver the preliminary plating. Any other questions? Roll call.
Ideas?
Yes.
Krejci?
Yes.
Sweet?
Yes.
Nagel?
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Number 5, consideration and action regarding parking plans submitted by Destiny Ministries. They made a presentation to planning and zoning last Thursday night. Travis, do you want to comment on that, or do I turn it over to?
So basically what we have in front of us is a parking plan for, that would directly be for the gymnasium renovation project that, they are working on doing. So this parking lot, is not currently on a parcel that is connected with that. That would be part of the planning process as well. So within our regulations, we look at, parking plan approval. That is part of the process of that, specifically to surfacing and different things like that. So the planning commission's recommendation was to not approve or not recommend approval of the parking plan based on the surfacing. What is proposed is a permeable surface rather than the concrete or asphalt that is outlined in our zoning regulations, specifically like in our design standards, especially through the transportation corridor area, which along 15th, that does fall in that. So they felt that they couldn't recommend approval of that based on that surfacing not meeting that requirement. Not that they was totally opposed to maybe hearing different things, but they kind of felt that there would have to be a different process, whether it be amendment to the regulations to allow some type of permeable surface to even consider it, or, you know, through a variance process other than a recommending board. But just as a next step, it comes before you anyway, and I think they have kind of a demonstration of the material that they are proposing. It's not very common around here, but they have a fairly decent presentation of the product itself and how it would work and what their reasoning for doing so is. So that's all I have.
I think I think we need to look ahead at different opportunities that might be out there. So, without action right now, I'll ask them to make a presentation.
I'm gonna get up and speak first.
Okay.
One of the things that, as we've been dealing with the city, you guys have given us a lot of concern about the runoff from our parking lot. And you all know where the parking lot is. Lot, Colony Acres is kind of up on a hill, and we have a hill up above where the gym is, and then there's another drop below it. Now, if you put in a solid concrete parking lot, you have the runoff to the south. We have potential of going down on the wall below us and the houses down there. And the other thing that we understood was a big deal was how much water we would be adding to the sewer system. Because you guys are adding all the new homes to the north. You're at building on. So what we wanted to do was represent a different idea. You know, we've had the same idea for 20 years. That's been the city's policy, having a hard surface. But as we all know, concrete breaks down, asphalt breaks down. It's a constant repairing. Our parking lot is not going to be heavily used. So why should we add more water to the system if there is an opportunity where we can have our water go straight down into the ground? We don't have any runoff. So it would be something different. But, you know, the biggest thing was, you know, we're next to a retirement area, and they were very unhappy with the idea we were putting in a parking lot right next to them. Because if you've ever been down in the athletic field in August, there's no wind. It is so hot because it's a hill. There's a hill there. You have green space, and it's just not an area where a lot of wind comes through there. So it's another thing that we took into consideration for the parking, was how do we do it so it's not so hot?
We do have a presentation for you, and have a couple of handouts I'd like to hand out to you. Our concern is, as already been stated, is the excess water going into the sewer system. And what we are presenting to you would eliminate that process. And we've done much research on this and found this to be one of the best means of handling that and dealing with potholes and cracks and et cetera, unseemly stuff that as a city we're wanting to improve on and make our city look more appropriate and inviting to those that are outside our community. And so with that said, I'd like to go ahead and start the presentation for you, and then we'll address some issues.
My passion for wildlife started at a very young age. I wanted to live my life ensuring the natural world was protected. Hi, I'm Caroline Rutledge, and I'm the CEO and founder of Core Landscape Products. We here at Core are always innovating new products, new and better products for the world without impacting our natural resources. I started this company in 2010 while I was working as an in-house biologist for a civil engineering firm. Began to see the detrimental effects of hard surfaces on our environment. For me, the answer was to provide everyone, from the homeowner to city planners, with a permeable foundation for projects from pathways to commercial parking lots, without sacrificing durability, aesthetics, or safety. We are the only company offering foundations for use in steep slope installations. With our unique lateral drainage features, 100% closed cell design, as well as our heat welded geotextile fabric, we can ensure vehicles as large as fire trucks can travel safely uphill. Trusted repeatedly by HGTV's The Property Brothers, US fire marshals, architects, thousands of homeowners, as well as park officials throughout North America, we truly offer something for everyone. Core is a benefit company, dedicated to conducting business in a responsible and sustainable manner. Core is also in the process of becoming B Corp certified and is a 1% for the Planet member to further demonstrate our commitment to social and environmental responsibility. To date, the use of Core foundations by folks just like you has prevented over 25 million kilograms of carbon dioxide from entering our atmosphere. Core adheres to the 7th generation principle, an ancient Iroquois philosophy that states, in our every deliberation, we must consider our impact on the next 7 generations. Simply put, everything that Core creates is designed to better the natural world through sustainable landscaping solutions. Thank you.
Let me just highlight just a few things here. The natural aesthetic is a natural gravel finish, blends in with natural landscaping, lowered lifetime cost of liability, no cracking, no potholes, no staining, resealing joints, no drainage, curb repairs, easy, affordable, quick repairs, no resurfacing needed. It's eco-friendly. It's made from recyclable material. It's permeable, improves drainage, reduces flash flood events, recharges local water tables, reduces heat island effects, no puddling, no running off. The strength, the load-bearing capacity, 62,000 pounds per square foot. Temperatures range from a -50 to a plus 158 degrees. Excellent chemical and weather resistance, accessibility, it's ADA appliance, it's wheelchair, reduces ice buildup, increases traction or slopes, workable in heels, high heels, and no sinking. And there are a lot of testimonies that are given to this, and we want to highlight, demonstrate to you some questions that may come about. This is the material right here. This is what it looks like. And this is the backing of this. And these foundations are 100% permeable. As such, they do not retain heat the same way impermeable surfaces as concrete and asphalt do. This feature, in conjunction with the free draining feature of the system, ensures leaves do not stick to this system as they do asphalt or concrete and similar surfaces. They have found in many public installations that the maintenance of these surfaces from the perspective of debris assertions is minimal to none. As for the collection of leaves, because the system is free draining, it is typically as much drier surface than asphalt and concrete that hold the water and collect soil and so forth. So when leaves land on this type of system, they stick and they stay and they rot. As for this core system, they find that particularly in public application that they follow up on because it is permeable. The leaves dry up or they blow away. In public installation, they have seen very little in the way of maintenance of leaves. When the weather dries up, the leaves dry up quickly, and that is, they're gone. The longevity of this product. The core gravel foundations, the plastic itself is comprised of a blend of 50-50 virgin and recyclable plastic, carbon black infused during the liquid stage. Carbon black is the ultraviolet light inhibitor provided the grid to cover with gravel of 1/2 inch. So what happens is the surface is prepared, 5 inches of 1 inch rock is put down as a base. Then this is put on top of that. And what goes inside this is called a pea gravel. It's 3/8 inch or larger that goes inside this. And as a result of this, the lifetime expectancy is 18 to 20 years. If the sun does not hit this directly or this, it's lifetime. They've had no problems. And as far as the geotech portion goes, the base of the grid is actually comprised of non-rotting, non-woven polyurethane geotextile fabric. Because unlike black fabric you see in the store when you put down for landscaping and it rots and your weeds come up and etc., that's woven. This is non-woven. Once it is protected from the sun, it should last indefinitely as well. This too is designed to last, provided it is not exposed to direct sunlight. If it does see ever light, if it didn't, it would last forever, okay? So, say you have a weak spot that occurs. What do? You take and cut this section out, and you replace it. You don't take everything out. That's all you have to do to take care of it. We have a sample of this here. And I have this here because I have P-Rock in here. So you can see this. water being poured in there. You saw that on the film as well, but something about seeing it in person. Yes, that is the P-rock. That is what goes into this, the honeycomb, okay? Snow removal is moved by a blade. You put guards on either side, and you never have to worry about it. The blades dig into this because the parking lot is level, okay? We're going to demonstrate what this looks like. I have my assistant here. When it rains, the water goes right on through.
Thank you.
Isabel? Last time I did this, she said, dump it all in there. So I was just trying to stay up. Some other benefits that besides what were mentioned there of a closed cell system, particularly this honeycomb, because it is also distributing weight over large areas. For example, with this system, pressure under a tire would be distributed not only in that area, but over a 10-foot square area. So it evenly distributes the weight, and that ensures that the surface stays level over time and that there is very little maintenance. As far as maintenance goes, the lifetime liability of the core system when compared to asphalt and concrete is extremely low compared to the initial cost outline installation. If you do need to do a repair to the core system, it's simply a matter of unclipping, as I mentioned earlier, taking that piece out and putting a new piece in. So it's actually very affordable, even more cost effectively than when you don't have to take the entire system out, especially when compared to lifetime availability, especially compared to concrete and asphalt, which we are familiar with. If there are examples, if you have a ground tree roots, you find in the cities that they put concrete and they plant a tree there. That tree, the roots are hindered and damaged because of the heat and because of that concrete that's around that. If you put this around trees, it's uninhibited because the water goes down through into the ground and it's able to continue to grow and to do what it's supposed to be able to do. I think I have covered most of the areas. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the DoD loves this stuff. They actually brought it on in 2017, and they take it to every embassy that they use all around the world. Japan is actually making this over the last 3 years. They're making this a standard because of the effects of concrete, and obviously they don't have a lot of square miles, so they're building up, and so they're literally making this a standard. New York Parks and Recs is literally replacing all of their concrete with this since 2014, just because of the amazing ability for their snow and everything else to be removed, and the heat's going away in their parks. Tulsa, the city of Tulsa is doing the same thing in their parks. South Carolina and North Carolina are just getting this over the last 12 months, and they're literally in the talks of doing it right now. I live in Omaha. I'm multiple business owner, and I'm bringing this to our HOA to get into our parks in our area of how amazing this is, and just in talks with obviously all the people that are involved in this. You can do a quick Google search and see that there's actually 5-star ratings across the board over the last 6 years. There's not one negative review. I literally spent days trying to find a negative review. Once again, I read this thing and I was like, seems too good to be true. There's got to be negative reviews. I couldn't find one. And you can do the same research I did. You can sit there and Google search. I just can't find it. There are literally concrete companies that are bringing this in and adding this into their product that they're actually giving, because it's taking over in the cities. It's taking over some of those things just because of the water runoff. I mean, our DoD is taking this thing into when we were in Iraq. They're bringing this product with them to set up parking lots to put our military vehicles on. I mean, that is pretty intense. The other thing is the DoD has had this contract since 2017. It's one of the longest contracts when it comes to a concrete or a landscaping or a parking contract that the DoD's had. It's one of the longest standing contracts, just because obviously there's a bidding process when it comes to DoD contracts, but they have not let this go since 2017. And from the research I've done, and obviously talking to people that we talked to, I don't think it's going away anytime soon for our DoD. And I mean, that's our Department of Defense of the United
Obviously, they're using it in Canada, but there's also in the United States, they're using it in Florida and Texas, and you say that's warm down there. And they're using it in Tulsa, they're using it in California, they're using it in Colorado, they're using it in New York, North Carolina, and Minnesota. Yes, Minnesota. Yes,
Water flows through that.
yes.
Probably gonna be green grass around that, you know, in your whole scheme of things. How about the dust and the dirt eventually plugging that porous part, and does that fill up? What's your story on that?
I addressed that specifically, and that's not a problem whatsoever. The only time they run into problems, have run into problems and they dealt with it, and Caroline, you were listening to her, she addressed the issue, was where they set this up, they put this material down, and there was some property next to that was mud. And people were driving over that, like you know how people do, they always go where you don't want them. They were going over there and they were tracking that mud in. So what they did, they put bumpers around there and eliminated that problem. That's why I addressed the leaves and the debris of the dirt, that there is no problem with this system.
So would you do bumpers in your situation? Or do you, the parking stops and grass starts, or are you envisioning like you were just mentioning, a bumper system?
What we have is on the north, on the east side, and on the west side, right there, there is a wall. Okay? So this is phase one. Phase two would be developing the rest of it into parking. We would put bumpers there to keep people from driving into that area that is grass right now. In fact, they have not only the rocks with this, you could plant grass. If you notice one of the pictures, you saw a parking lot that was grass. And they mow it, and it stems up underneath all the weight, and looks great. And out north of town here by I understand even out by Lake Wahoo, they put stuff out like this, and the water did not drain. It created a mud hole. Why? Because this allows the water to go in, allows the air to go in, and dries it. And so that's why this product is number one, and why it's such a great advantage to be able to utilize. And it looks great. If there's a problem of a little resurfacing needs to be done, you bring a little rock in and stretch it out. One person, I would understand, could put 500 square feet of this together within an hour. Goes very rapidly.
I'm sure that the subsurface material, like if it's a very heavy clay, once it's wet, you're gonna see a little bit different on the surface. I mean, if you got 5 inches of rain, and then you got another 5 inches of rain, which has been known to happen in Nebraska,
It happens everywhere, yeah.
you're not gonna have it drain because that clay is gonna be, it
That's
just
where your
depends on.
base is everything then.
One of the
Right, yeah, your
testimonies
base
that I
is
read,
everything, yeah.
one of the testimonies I read was an area that had a lot of clay, and they praised this. They said the drainage is incredible. Preparation is what is important, that 1 inch rock.
Yeah, so
Can't
that's
use
5
river
inches
rock.
of that, right?
It has to be clean. Can't use river rock, it will not work, but it has to be 1 inch stone like this. We did a lot of research on this.
How do the pavement markings hold up to like identifying the actual stalls?
Good question, I'm glad you asked that, I almost forgot to bring it. They have colored little deals like this that you put to mark it out, so everybody knows where they're parking.
If you saw in the video, the way that they snap into each other, there's literally spots where you can actually attach things into it and literally have lines.
I just, yeah,
So
they
it's
didn't
attached
really
right into the
show,
framework.
but like one spot of that, so it's like,
Yeah.
is that just like
Right.
one little thing, or is it the whole parking lot
Right.
able to be drawn out?
Yeah, it would be a whole.
So in Tulsa, there's the fire department that did it for 150 parking spots outside of it, because there's a community center attached to it, and they have the whole parking lot set up, and it's literally with that same thing, 148 exactly spaces with that exact layout that they showed on the video.
What is the product warranty on that?
The product warranty, they're saying 18 to 20 years plus.
But they don't have it defined, they're saying 18 to 20?
only been around for 13 years, so they
It's been around 13 years,
They don't have a-
and this is non-rottable substance.
So how long will the company back that product?
Warranty on its lifetime, so if it does, if, say there's a piece that's a lemon that does, break when it's not supposed to, completely, replaceable by then. Like I said, it's a 3x3 square that needs to be replaced with a shovel versus, ripping out concrete, ripping out asphalt to come in, or like the gentleman here was talking about, having high dollar equipment to go replace, you could have a teenager come in and replace the grid. I mean, literally, if you actually go on there and start looking at the reviews, it's talking about, after a professional comes and lays down the foundation, they literally are having, volunteers come in and lay the grids down. I mean, it's literally that simple.
But Melissa, you asked a very good question, and, for that, because of the clay, our engineer said that we had to go 6 inches of the rock instead of what is normally required is 4. So we are going the extra mile so that we have the extra insurance that it will fully drain. So that was what our engineer felt the most comfortable with because of that situation when you asked.
Right, good point. Our engineer approves this, so.
This is my selfish question, have you run into any Nebraska entities that have a defined set of zoning regulations that say this is allowed under these conditions or anything like that, so that we wouldn't be creating the wheel, so to speak?
This will be the first time this product is placed.
Okay.
And the civil engineer said he's excited to see what's gonna happen, because if it turns out like he thinks, it's gonna be a big hit on this part of the state.
Or maybe even, hypothetically, the company might point to Oklahoma or Tulsa or somebody like that that has a zoning reg that says, this is what they've adopted, you can do it, this is how it's defined, here's the situations it's allowable, in what zoning jurisdictions, that sort of thing. Because I'm guessing, listening to Travis, that's the question is, okay, to do this, we would have to amend our regs.
Correct.
What would our regs say, right?
Yes.
Right. Exactly.
Because I do want to add one other thing, like he said, the grass version. Now, the rest of the property, we would like to put, if this is approved, the grass version in, so that there's parking in other areas on the campus, but it's all grass. So we're not losing the aesthetic of the property. Because if you look at 1319, the church, that's dirt. We didn't pave that because that water runs straight down to the church and causes a bigger problem. That's what caught our eye on this, because we wanted a system that was still grass. I don't like concrete, period. It's hideous. So, yes, we would have to ask for an amendment so that we could use this. But also, actually, the question I would have to ask the attorney, now with our sidewalks, we're not mandatory to have concrete, right? Because it's all privately owned property.
Within your sidewalks, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that's what we would want to put in, because I don't know if you noticed that they had a glow-in-the-dark sidewalks, because then our sidewalks would be lit up at night, because there's a lot of people that walk even in the evenings. So it'd even be a great idea for the sidewalks out to the lake being lit up, and not extra expense having to put lights up, it would be lit up automatically. So, yeah, we are asking for an amendment. That's
Yeah.
Were you asking, for us to reach out and see what zoning, see what?
Yeah, because to me, there's 3 possibilities here, right? There is the possibility where, nope, it's a change, we don't like new, it's a non-starter. To the opposite end of the spectrum, which is, hey, let's amend our zoning regulations, this is how they're gonna read. Like, how are we defining this? Because we wouldn't just say, well, this one company is allowed. We'd say, under this definition, here's what you have to show and prove, and it has to have the little markers and all that kind of stuff, right? And we would need a set of regs to do that. My concern is if we do that, you know how the Wahoo works, is it's gonna take a lot of time if we're inventing the wheel, right? To figure all that out, test it out. The only middle ground I can see is there's a provision which is very rarely used, and usually we don't do it, in 7.27 of our zoning regs that allows for a waiver. So if we said, look, for you, we'll allow this, but you're the guinea pig, and if the whole thing turns out to be a disaster, it's on you, right? But we're not gonna go all in and allow this throughout the city or zoning regs or like. To me, those are the 3 options that are in front of you, is no, waiver, or zoning regs.
the rock she was talking about it's from the sun, and that will be lit up for 12 hours, 7 days a week. And it doesn't have to be real thick. Pretty impressive.
Somebody else wants to share.
Can I add some comments? Pardon? Can I add some positive comments? Sure. All right, thanks. So I've also been looking into a similar product.
I'll give you 5 minutes.
Sorry. I think this is great, by the way. I think this is productive, and I think this is a very interesting product, by the way. So, a couple comments that I just wrote down notes. In doing this product or similar products, you do have to do a soils test to understand what the soils are made up of, clay, etc. So they do kind of cohesively figure out the base layer and the runoff, etc. So topo maps are put into play, soils test. It is still engineered as a typical parking lot with the nuance of the permeable surface. One comment was brought up, the warranty of this product or similar products. This is a very sustainable and hardy product. On the flip side, I know asphalt and concrete, they do not come with any warranty even after the day you install concrete or asphalt. So I am less receptive to stand behind any concrete or asphalt material, nor is any other contractor willing to stand behind that, just because it's a vulnerable product. I do think this would be great for Wahoo, focused on rehab properties. I know we're going to have a lot of drainage issues potentially with rehabs around Wahoo. Obviously, it's landlocked by other buildings. The infrastructure is what it is. So I think having some sort of solution like this or similar to this would help other rehab projects in the Kennedy area or other urban developments go through with the avoidance of retention ponds, retention taverns, whatever you want to call them, buried below the surface. So I think this would be a great solution to potential problems of drainage. I know from an erosion standpoint, you could put it on hills, you could put it in green spaces. It would be a more aesthetic look for erosion control rather than nets, fences, rocks, etc. I think the grass solution growing through the plastic material, it looks really nice, it's easy to mow, etc. So, and then I also do know, just as the slides pointed out, it is cost comparative to the life expectancy of concrete, asphalt as well, though this product will stand up a lot longer. So, I hope this product can find a way into Wahoo. I'm doing a similar project in Omaha to try to use a similar product. So, I would, support the ability to use this product as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, presentation has been made. I guess, I'm not sure which needs to come first. We do have one action that's being asked, is to approve this project. Does not fit our current regs.
Yeah, I don't think you can take action at this point to approve anything. I think what it really is the direction of the property owner of, are you going to either direct the planning commission to work with them on a zoning reg change? Are you going to consider, when they submit for a building permit and come back for replat, a waiver? Or are you going to simply say, no, you need to change course and look at hard surfacing?
There is a process, is that right, on asking for a waiver?
No.
I'm asking for an amendment.
Well, there's a process for an amendment. A waiver, basically, just like any of the other waiver processes we do, there's 3 criteria under your reg. So it's just basically, it's put on the agenda as request for waiver, like the height requirement thing we're dealing with next. And then you have to say, okay, does it meet the 3 criteria or not? Historically, not that you've never granted waivers, but generally you don't consider waivers unless it's in exceptional circumstances or it's a governmental entity. That's where you most regularly has granted waivers. But again, that's not to say you can't. It's just that, I think the exact language is, you'd have to show it's one, unique circumstances, two, necessary for reasonable acceptable use of the property, and three, not detrimental to the public. So you'd have to talk through those three issues and make a determination on all three. No, no, because this, I'll be honest, this wouldn't be granted a variance, because it's for a specific benefit to a person. It's not an unnecessary hardship, there's just no way it would get a variance, so waiver is really the only option.
Or an amendment to the zoning.
Or an
reg.
amendment to the reg, if you wanna, the reason that presumably you wouldn't do that is if you didn't wanna go whole hog, right? You didn't wanna say, yeah, let's open this up for everybody. You wanted to say, no, let's let them be the guinea pig and the test subject, and then down the road, figure out if we like this or not, based on how it's going on that property.
I mean, if you're ever gonna have almost an experiment, a church parking lot is a pretty good place to start.
Yeah.
Or a utility part, wherever, it's not gonna get that much huge. I mean, is it something that we then think about, or, I mean, are
Yeah,
you
you-
wanting to try to move forward with this thing right now?
Yeah, I
Since we
mean-
just saw all the information literally 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's up to you. Again, it's not technically in front of you for action, because we can't approve a parking plan, one, because it's an off-premise parking lot. It has to be replatted before you'd even deal with that, right? And two, the only option you can do is when it's done in connection with the building permit application, right? And there's no pending building permit application, because the replat, the building permit application, the parking presumably is gonna come all at once. But they need direction.
So the,
Planning commission does kind of all together
Yeah,
at final
at final,
approval basically for count.
yeah. But they need direction, that's why it's in front of you early, basically.
I mean, I'd have no problem with considering a waiver. I mean, this is a unique product. I mean, I'm listening to a lot of other uses I could think of around this
Yeah.
place when I'm listening to the presentation.
Yeah.
I'd sure like to see this in action. But that's just me.
I guess one thing that I think might be appropriate is, we have resources like LTAP, which it is transportation based, it's through UNL, and I'm certain that they have literature on permeable paving, whether it's parking lot or sidewalks or, you know, high traffic areas, low traffic streets, whatever, that maybe could be, that is specific to Nebraska and not specific to one product, but the conditions that we live in here versus Oklahoma or California. I know I heard you mention Minnesota, they get a lot of snow,
Well,
but
it's a
Canada?
Canadian company,
Right.
so it started in Vancouver. BC pretty much uses it extensively on their government properties too. So I
Now,
mean,
the difference there is, when it freezes there, it stays frozen, it doesn't thaw like here where we
yep.
Freeze
50
thaw,
degrees
freeze thaw.
for a week and then back down to -10 for a week, and so that that subgrade does move a lot here, and that's why our streets fall apart. It's
Which is the
not-
same reason concrete cracks after
Yeah.
2
And
years.
that's why the pavement cracks up, is because the subgrade itself
Yeah.
moves too much.
I think the biggest thing is like GeoCore's been out for a really, really long time. The way GeoCore worked is kind of the same system, same setup, but it drains into a leach field, which then goes to, as he was talking, a green space, a basin, where you have your natural greens and everything that suck up all that water. My concern would be is if that clay soil got overly saturated, or we had the soil that was overly saturated, so we got heavy rain, that would be my concern would be is how does it actually drain and leach out?
Yeah,
You
no,
know, and to
if
see
you have
that.
4 days of rain
These won't feel
in a row and row and row, what's it gonna, is it gonna
drains down.
still run
Because
off,
it
or is
still
it
has
gonna
to go
stay in?
somewhere, I mean, it's.
Because if you got rain for 4 days and it's 2-inch rain each day,
Mhm.
what's gonna happen on that 4th day of rain? You know,
Yeah, my only
that's-
concern,
That's the question.
I think
mean, it's
when you
not like-
go through those waiver standards, unique circumstances, that probably applies, right? Necessary for reasonable acceptable use of the property, that arguably might apply given the unique nature of the Kennedy campus and everything else. The third one is the question, is it detrimental to public? I.e., in this situation, what's the effect on Colony Place,
The
the
neighborhood
houses that are on the other
Right.
side of that? That's, I don't know the answer to that. That's really the question. And that's, I think, what Joe is really talking about is there a risk there?
So we, at my past workplace, they used it in parking areas to control groundwater runoff. And that's the goal. The goal is to keep it green. But the geogrids drain to a basin which had to be highly maintained. They used concrete pavers instead of pea gravel. So you had to grid, then the concrete or block, recycled material, however they made those pavers, went inside the grid, and then inside the grid was sand that then drained, and then it leached out into the retention pond, which was a pretty green retention pond that needed maintained because you had to pick out the weeds, clean up, pretty, but high maintenance. I would love to see it work. I mean, if it worked, it would be wonderful, but I also would say, if you're in a high area there, high ground, I don't know if I would use it down by like the baseball fields where that ground is continuously saturated, or where there's a lot more groundwater area in the lower ground.
I guess this is also probably a situation where you don't have any contributing buildings essentially running off into, right? It's already a built environment and you're not adding a lot more rooftops.
Yeah.
Right.
You're taking green space and putting this in there.
Can I ask what the reasons why the planning commission, I didn't hear that, Travis.
Basically, because they didn't feel that the zoning regulations allowed for their recommendation for this type of surfacing. When it's very clear, it says shall be either concrete or asphalt with curbing.
Gotcha.
It says right in there, shall have curbing, asphalt, or concrete is acceptable.
Yeah,
And then, talking with the landscaping requirements as far as interior landscaping, which they could add very easily with this, but, that was the other thing as far as, I guess, the other details on the parking plan itself, considering the landscaping portion of that too as well. With other parking plans brought before us, landscaping was approved at that same time and everything like that.
So I will address and say that the comments that were made over here, they do not use sand for a base because that was a problem. And that's why they use the 1-inch rock. And that allowed the water to go in and et cetera. On the property there between us and Colony Acres, that black asphalt, we own all of that. That's our property. They have an easement for that. And whether you're aware of that or not. But they speak very highly of this. The people who use it speak very highly of it. And if you choose to, you'll be number one. And Wahoo's number one in a lot of things. And I'm excited about it.
Yeah. You probably understand why we can't approve.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so instead of action to not approve, suggestion, Jovan agreed to not to vote on it tonight, leave it open so that we could study it and offer a waiver to what we have.
I certainly think that the additional information would not hurt. I mean, hearing about it tonight,
Yeah.
and even hearing our Joe's opinion, I think there's probably other opinions and thoughts out there. I think it definitely is worth hearing additional information.
It's intriguing.
Yeah.
And one question I guess I would have to the council, because it would give the staff a better idea of how to proceed between now and next, is are you more apt to consider the granting of a waiver for this project specifically, or for a zoning regulation change in its entirety?
Me personally, I would look at this initial project to see how it went
How
before
it
we
actually
made an
functions.
amendment to
Cause
everything.
if it doesn't function as people thought it would here in
Then why
Nebraska.
waste the time?
And we have,
That's where my mind
we have
goes.
15 other areas that have it, and it's a disaster everywhere. It's not gonna be good for the city.
And the only reason I ask is because if that's the case, then really what the city's just looking at, or staff is looking at, is that third element, that supplemental aspect, the stuff that Joe's talking about, you know, the potential effect on the neighbors. It's kind of just investigating that to determine if, in the staff's opinion, it meets that criteria for you, or maybe something needs to be adjusted to the project to address a particular issue, right? As opposed to going and starting to draft a zoning reg and go through all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
What was the organization, Melissa, that you're referring to that had some resources?
Oh, UNL's, it's LTAP. It is,
LTAP.
Yeah, it's through the extension program.
Yeah, they got a turf program and parking, yeah. Okay,
I have one more thing.
yeah,
One of the things I don't know if everybody knows, half of the parking lot would be done first, so we would have that green space to find out if it would really work. So we would be doing the test run first. So we do have the green space so that we are not affecting any of our neighbors, because that is a concern.
okay. So, no action tonight, we will defer back to, planning and zoning and staff, to look at a form of a waiver. Okay, we'll move on. Item number 6, waiver of height requirement for fencing for the Wahoo Public School bus yard.
I think this waiver is pretty,
Right.
cut and dry, yes?
Yeah, this one falls under that general, the way we've approached waivers in the past, as I kind of just detailed a little bit, is if it's a political subdivision, as we've dealt with, like with the hospital issue, political subdivisions are somewhat above and beyond our regulations and our ability to tell them no as it relates to particular issues, or at least there's a legal question there. And so generally, we've been pretty flexible in granting waivers as long as we aren't concerned particularly with that third piece about the safety piece.
That was the only question I had for you, is it gonna affect any site stuff with 23rd and Hackberry? Where the
So-
location is?
Yeah, so it's plenty far off of 23rd Street, the new location of the bus barn.
That's the biggest one
They had it spec'd out with 8 foot specifically because that is currently what is there at their bus location now. So that letter that Brandon, produced for you there is just kind of explaining that, and as Joven said, we have that waiver, in the past for, fence security reasons, different things like that. It's a little different than the residential area, for height forgiveness, so I don't see any issue with, utilities or site or anything like that, due to the location.
It's the council's pleasure. I move to approve the waiver.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion been made and second to approve the fence height waiver for the public, school bus yard. Any questions? Roll call.
Ideas?
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Nagel?
Yes.
Krejci?
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
Okay, I don't have any other comments or items at this time. Council members, anything else? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor stand.